Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to Dayle Adams. She is a psychic medium who wanted to do more to help people left behind in grief. In 2021, she founded Night of Our Light in honour of loved ones in spirit through the lighting of hundreds of candles in spiritual places. Caring for her mum with Lewy body dementia, her experiences led her to become an accredited end-of-life facilitator. Planning ahead of time, or PAT, was born out of the desire to help others. Dayle advocates for cooperation and collaboration between end-of-life industry professionals, offering weekly PAT chats where they can promote their services. So I will hand over to you now, Dayle. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, Nick. I really appreciate it. As you can see on the screen here, and as Nick has nicely just introduced me, I work as a psychic medium and have done for over 20 years now. I became an accredited, certified end-of-life facilitator. I created Night of Our Light and I founded Planning Ahead of Time. And I'm going to speak about all of those things today. A psychic medium specifically communicates with spirit. So we actually work as a channel, as a telephone, so that we can connect spirit and the physical person. In that way, I class that the work that I do as a medium, and now really in my end-of-life work, is bridging the gap between the physical and the spiritual worlds. So for me, and it often is the way that people find out they can do it, or they're told specifically when they actually see a psychic or a medium who turn to them and literally say, you can do what we're doing. That doesn't happen that often. As somebody who's now done hundreds of readings, it's not often that I will say to somebody, you have a gift or you could be doing some of the work that I'm doing. And that was the case with me. I went to see a medium called Peggy Foster and she told me that I had a gift. At the time, it didn't occur to me that when I used to talk to my granddad who had died and ask him for directions or ask him for advice, it didn't occur to me that that was strange. Obviously, I found out that it was, it's not normal, and that, in fact, I was able to communicate with people in spirit. This started, for me, once I've been going through the training, I was also a Reiki practitioner where you're working with energy and you're working with healing. And in doing so, you're changing your brain frequencies so that you're working very calmly and you're working with the energy of the person that you're healing. In doing that, I believe we are all energy and therefore we're all interconnected and all interlinked. And during one of my Reiki treatments, I saw a gentleman and he started to talk to me about green socks. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't actually for the person I was doing the Reiki treatment on, so they were a little freaked out when I asked them about it at the end of the treatment. But when I phoned a friend of mine, which I just felt maybe it was to do with her, and I rang her and I said, "Do green socks mean anything to you?" She said, "Yes, we buried my dad in green socks." Now, this is where it's that a little something that for me was a very strange thought and comment, but for her meant so much. And she knew instantly that the gentleman was her dad. From then on in, I actually did quite a lot of readings for her. People see mediums because they want to know that their loved ones are in spirit, that they are okay, that they're still connected to them from a physical to spiritual perspective. And some of that is because maybe they didn't get to say what they needed to say before the person died, or they don't know whether they did right by the person, or they simply want to know, are they still around me? Are they still with me? And one of a lovely reading I did, which had a specific relationship to how somebody was dealt with at their end of life, was a reading I was doing. I saw this man and he was showing me, it was the client's dad, and I could see him being taken into the church in a coffin. And I was describing the church, what was happening. And as I did, I said, he's tapping his foot. He's actually really quite upbeat. I can sort of see this man in a really jolly, upbeat way, tapping his foot. He's obviously sort of moving to some music. And I said, but this is upbeat music. This is this is not music that you would expect somebody to be brought into a church to. It turned out that there had been quite a debate because her dad, who'd been terminally ill, had spoken to her about his funeral. And he'd actually said that this was his favourite piece of music and he would like to be brought into the church to it. But her mom didn't agree because, again, it just was not the type of music that you would play. So they'd had a debate over it, and it finally been decided that they would bring him into this music. So he was actually confirming, and I said, he's loving this. He's really actually enjoying it. He's really pleased. And then she told me what that meant to her through the tears of, we did the right thing, or I did the right thing, because again, there had been this debate over it. So it can be a lovely connection. It can really help people, especially when they are stuck within their grief, to have these messages. With this, it's not just older people that come through. A little girl called Grace was 3 years old when she died, and she would come through to me. I was connected to her parents before she died, but she would come through to me and give messages to both parents independently of things about her room, about her life, about them that I couldn't possibly know. And this, again, is such... Very recently, I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs that just started to bark in the background. Very recently, I did a reading for a lady who lost 3 loved ones, both parents and a nan, within weeks of each other. And she was all consumed by the grief, but also there hadn't been the planning. So it had been a very, very traumatic, both from obviously losing her loved ones so close together, but also all of the administration that went with it. So the messages can be very comforting and it can be really, really helpful. But what I do now is I work one-to-one with people, mainly online, because it doesn't matter where you are. It's about connection and not location. I also work, as the picture shows here, in groups. So we do psychic suppers. I train other people in psychic development as well now. So, and I've also done platform where you stand at a spiritual church and talk to the congregation. When people have a terminal diagnosis, often one of the first things they do is they start to plan. They start to look at what do they want as their diagnosis and their illness progresses. What would they want for themselves? What would they want for their family? What do they want to say? What do they want their last wishes to be? What would they want their funeral to look like? They start putting all the paperwork in place. They start basically getting everything ready so that it makes life easier for their loved ones, and that they're putting it in place specifically to care for their loved ones beyond their last breath. And while we're in life, that's what we do. We look after the people around us. We're doing it all the time. I really believe that that should be something we can continue to do. Even when my mum was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia in October 21, she'd recently gone through a big back operation. So when her changes began, we just thought it was medication because she was on a lot of pain medication. We actually had no idea that, in fact, it was dementia that she was getting, and that Lewy body dementia takes body and mind very, very quickly. So by the time she was losing capacity, we really hadn't got anything in place. We weren't ready. And we had LPAs for her finances, but we didn't have it for health and welfare. So this in itself started to create problems. Had we had forethought, had we been planning on a regular basis, as we do in our lives for everything else, we would have had plans in place. We would have been ready. It would have been a very different journey to the one that we had, where we were constantly fighting for help for her, both financially and physically. And I actually cared for my mum. I gave up the work that I was doing to care for my mum through this journey. And she died unexpectedly in August 2023. We weren't ready for that either. The pictures you see here is my mum healthy, but the picture where she actually has the pink necklace on, we were at her 75th birthday party. 3 days later, she was injured in a care home, went into hospital and subsequently died. And she was only in for respite for 5 days. So it was all very unexpected. So even though I was training in end of life facilitation, we still weren't prepared for her death. So planning ahead of time was set up in her honour. I had already been training and working prior to that, because what I really believed is that people need to be planning ahead. We plan for everything, births, holidays, retirements. Everything we plan is so that we can be organised, we can be in control, and we can be making sure that the people we need around us are around us. They know what they're doing. They know what we want. So for me, we didn't know. So even though, because my mum lost capacity quickly, we didn't know. And what we didn't know was what was available to us. I've gone to the bottom of the slide, I'll go back to the top. So from a financial perspective, my mum did everything. It was very traditional. My mum ran the house, did all the finances. When my mum lost capacity, my dad had never used a cash point card. Now, we consider that something really quite basic, but he hadn't used one. So then he went to the cash machine with his credit card instead of a debit card, and therefore incurred fees. We were 8-9 months down the line where we received a fine from a credit card company for not paying a credit card bill. We never, right up till death and beyond, we never found that credit card. We never found any statements for the credit card that my mum got billed for. And it was for a subscription through her phone, through Apple. So we didn't know. So just making sure people know the basics of the finances and what you've got, where it is absolutely crucial. Where's the paperwork? A client of mine, I got there, and in the first meeting, they handed me a couple of carrier bags full of envelopes. Now, the envelopes had been opened. Obviously, things had been looked at, but then they'd been put back in the envelope and put out of mind, because her husband dealt with that. But when he became ill and couldn't do it anymore, she had all of this paperwork. Another client, it was all put into storage. When the sister got dementia, all of the boxes were put into storage. When I came along and we finally got everything out and started going through it, we found 4 private pensions that the family were unaware of, which is significant and makes a huge difference, especially when obviously some of them could be taken out to assist with her care. So there's various things that people need to consider, but also, are the right people going to benefit? Another client, her sole beneficiary was her husband, and her husband had been in care for quite some time when she fell ill, at which point, because there was talk of end of life, everybody started to look at the paperwork, and I was spoken to in relation to the planning, and the sole beneficiary was her husband, not her 3 children. He was already in care being looked after. So you can, in fact, change your will with capacity and for the right reasons up to your final breath. So her will was changed. So are the right people benefiting? Do you have the right people in place? Another client was 84 and the attorney on the power of attorney for her husband, who was in his 90s. She had full capacity mentally, but she just didn't have the ability. She just didn't want to do it. He was in care. She needed some help. So is the person that's responsible for your wishes, not just on an attorneyship, but generally the person that you have as your executor or looking after your wishes, are they capable of dealing with it? Do you know what's available to you? Sophia in the last talk was saying about being able to help weave your own coffin. For this picture here, I took my dogs into the main hospital locally to me to see my mum in her final days. And this is a picture of them on her bed, because I wanted them to understand where she'd gone. And pets are so important, and really not just for the pets, but for my mum, for goodbyes. But there are people holding funerals in pubs. There are so many options. People their coffin being taken to the crematorium in a digger. There's so many things that are available to us, and we just aren't always aware of them. That's why I wanted to start helping people with planning ahead of time. I wanted people to be able to consider these options. And in trying to help people plan ahead of time, I wanted to collaborate with other end-of-life professionals, because for me, end-of-life services are so important, and everybody I've worked with in this industry is absolutely amazing. They've all got, it's all heartfelt, heart-led, and I feel, regardless of whether people are helping other people plan, as I do, I speak to anybody from celebrants to florists to death educators, and to basically help people know what is available to them. And there's a few people on here who I actually have chatted to, and David, who was on earlier, I'm chatting to next week. If this is something you're interested in, please do. Louise, I don't know if you could take your mic off, but you and I have done a pat chat. Are you there?
Morning, Dayle. Yes, we have. Yes, thank you.
It's quite easy, isn't it?
Yeah, you guided me through every step of the way to be able to talk about what I do in memory of my mum, and it's so beautiful because I know you haven't explained that where Pat comes from.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, waffling. Planning ahead of time. PAT is Pat. That's my mum's name. So thank you for that, Louise. Yeah.
No, you're welcome.
I think a lot of people, again, come to this industry because it feels like a calling, and to try and bring in some change to help other people. And I know, again, with what you do, it's in honour of your mum too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always very moved and sadly not surprised that an awful lot of people who come onto these forums and are involved in this line of business, I suppose, and work, come because of a personal story. And it's very sad quite often that people have come because they've had a poor experience. But it's really exciting and very powerful that people are actually connecting, like with, you know, the lifting the lid is connecting all these people, which is what you do as well, Dayle, isn't it? You have your pat chats and people find out about what's available to them, and then they go and tell other people, and then, as you say, these connections grow, don't they? And I always talk about what we do as like a spider's web. So, you know, we invite people to learn one new thing and then go and tell somebody else about it, and then get them to learn one new thing and tell somebody else about it. And, you know, the connections that everybody is growing is just so important to you know, people's well-being and how they deal with an event of a death.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, this is where it's good for us to connect and help other people, even if they are doing a similar role to us, because people buy from people. And if somebody comes to me and they're an older person with no siblings and no children, there's another end-of-life facilitator that I would put them to, because I think she would give them a better service than me, because of the circumstances, you know, and being able to actually match with people. But I also think we need to be sharing and helping each other, and that is very much everything that I do. And I think that comes from my spiritual work. You know, this is our soul's journey. It's a spiritual journey. It's more than just us being in this physical space. And I want to help other people connect. And so with that, thank you, Louise, for just saying that. But I've got the Facebook group End of Lifers. Again, for anybody who is an end-of-life professional, you can join it. There's an email here. If you're interested in doing a pat chat, they are on YouTube. So yeah, please do get in touch with me. Night of Our Light came from me visiting Mexico and learning of Day of the Dead. I really didn't feel that the UK was ready for a festival as such called Day of the Dead, although there are events now running in the UK. But I wanted a way to honour our loved ones in spirit in a UK appropriate way. And I always talk about sort of our light. You know, for me, we have a light inside. It's our spirit, it's our soul. I felt that actually, you know, we light candles for our loved ones anyway. When I work spiritually, I'll light a candle. And so I decided that it would be lovely to put hundreds of candles and light places up in honour of our loved ones. I looked at time of year, and the 3rd of November was just after the change of the clock, so the nights were darker, but it also fell around Day of the Dead, which is held over 2 to 3 days, Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and All Souls Day. They were all around that time, but actually 3rd of November had nothing on it. Now it does. So it's Night of Our Light. I'd really love it to be a UK-wide honouring of our loved ones in spirit. It has been held at churches for the last 2 years until this year. And as you can see from the picture, I'm not sure how clearly you can see it, but it's absolutely stunning. On the events that we've done, the most used word is magical, because it is magical. It's tranquil. It's spiritual. It's just beautiful. And people visit who would never normally sort of go to a church. People can walk around. But this year we actually held it at a cemetery as well. And we also had a barrow where they store cremation ashes. So we've got it now starting in different spaces, which is what I would really like as it grows forward. And on each of the events, we do a reading of names at 7 o'clock. So people then can stand or sit and reflect and have their loved one's name read out. These are there's a Facebook group for Night of Our Light where you can find these if you choose to have a look. But I'd really like it to grow, and we're all in this end of life space. We're all trying to help people with dying, death, loss and grief. And if anybody is interested in joining us for 2025, I'd really love to hear from you. It's a cheap event to run because what you need is jars. It's a pain taking all the labels off. So I do now say to people, please only provide me with clean labelless jars, but jars. And then you buy tea lights, 3-hour tea lights. It's a 2-hour event. It's held in the evening. That gives people a chance to look round, light a candle for their loved one, and then hear the reading of names, have time for reflection. But it's actually beautiful. And so I really would like to see more people get involved in this if they would. And that's basically everything I'm doing to try and help people with end of life.